Let me now introduce you one of our last interventions. They are all friends already. Of course, you know them, the National Library of Israel. We have had the pleasure of collaborating with them for several years, and we are excited to continue learning and working together. Olga Lempert, project manager at the National Library of Israel, brings a wealth of experience in Jewish communal life and heritage projects. She's original from Vilnius in Lithuania and has dedicated her career to Jewish education and heritage since the early 2000s. As part of the Gesher L'Europa team at the National Library of Israel, she is instrumental in developing projects in culture, heritage, and training. We look forward to hearing from Olga and further strengthening our partnership with the National Library of Israel. Olga, thank you very much for being here. I know in Israel it's already a little bit late, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Federico, and thank you for that kind introduction. I have the very big privilege that I think most of you looking through the list of participants actually know about the National Library, so I don't need to give you the whole spiel of what is the National Library. So I will attempt to share my presentation of shortly of our proposal for this year's exhibition. Now, as most of you probably know, the National Library is a content partner to the European Days of Jewish Culture, and we provide every year an exhibition curated from our collections, usually with an interactive digital element as well, to match the theme as we interpret it. So I will now show you what we have been thinking about in terms of our interpretation of the family theme. And of course, feel free to let us know if you have additional ideas and suggestions. Now, I am not sure that I will manage to share my screen properly, but okay. Let's see. Okay, that is not what I want you to be. You're seeing not my presentation, right? You're seeing my side.
Yeah, we're seeing the lecturer part. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know how to actually do that. Can you help? Do you know how to?
I have to say that my expertise in Mac is Apple products. It's not the best one, but we can see it anyways. Olga, I think you can share it.
It doesn't really matter if you see my side of things.
Yeah, we just see it a little bit smaller, but it's fine.
Okay, so let's do it this way. Okay, so oh, I know. Let me see just. Sorry. So we usually what we try to do. Here we go. Is this better?
Much better, much better.
Excellent. What we usually try to do is we try to break down the theme into sub-themes that will help us then create different panels for the exhibition, and then eventually also create different ideas for engagement with the theme on a variety of levels. So, of course, in this first slide, you're seeing our reading rooms from which we draw our inspiration for all the things that we do, and from which also come all the materials that we curate for the exhibition as of this year, as we've moved to our new building in October this year. So here are some considerations that we had in mind when we came up with these themes, which I feel is important to share with you. First of all, it's relevance, because we always bear in mind that that the European Days of Jewish Culture are all about making this culture and this heritage relevant to everybody involved, not just the Jews and not just the non-Jews who come to learn. It's important for us to stay within modern times, and that brings me to the next point, which is inclusivity. We want, especially in a theme that is sensitive like family, we want everybody to feel included. We don't want anyone to feel like their type of family or their family situation or their background hasn't been referred to in the exhibition. We want people to find themselves in the exhibition because only that way we feel it will indeed remain relevant. Next, of course, we are very conscious of the fact that an exhibition is a visual medium and therefore it must have variety. Of course, many who think about a national library or a central archive for the history of the Jewish people think about, yellowing pages of writing that is difficult to read because it's in a foreign language. We want to beat that stereotype and we want to show great variety of materials as we have those in our collection. And also this heritage consists of a great variety of material, which we feel is our responsibility to highlight. Next, we of course want to highlight our own collections because after all, the National Library of Israel is not just for Israel, it's for the world, it's for everyone who is interested in Jewish heritage, and we have world-leading collections in this regard, so it would be a shame not to highlight them. We find it very important to enable you, the organizers, to run educational activities around this. We know that not everybody does that. We know that not everybody uses our exhibitions that way, but we want you to be able to. We want the exhibition to allow for educational activities around it. And we also make propositions as to what those could be. And our digital element usually allows an expansion on the theme so that you can really take this forward for any age and any audience. And next, it's important for us to refer to the context. So it's important to us which countries this is happening in, which communities this is happening in. So we try to highlight at least some of the countries and communities that are involved. It's also important to us, the audience which you're facing, which is why it's very important to us to be in conversation with you and hear from you if you're intending to use the exhibition, that you share with us what you plan to do with it so that we can adjust at this planning stage to suit your needs better, because at the end of the day, we want you to use this. We're making this for you. So do be in touch with us and share your context so that we can be more informed and make a better product for you. And finally, it's important for us to return to sources. We believe that the Jewish canonical sources and Jewish classical sources are still relevant to this day, going back to the first consideration. And we don't want them to be forgotten. We know that for many of you who work in Jewish communities and not only, original sources are sometimes a challenge because they are difficult to work with. At the National Library, that is our specialty. We know how to work with sources and we suggest to you ways to work with them. And we don't want anybody to be intimidated by the sources. We feel like anybody can work with them, and we are here to help and suggest ways how to. That in mind, we are going to center this year's exhibition around guiding quotes from our canonical sources for each sub-theme, and shortly you will see some examples of that. So our guiding questions in breaking down the theme of family, because the theme of family is very broad, right? It's very general. So in order to create an exhibition around it, we had to break it down into sub-themes. And how we did that was by asking these questions. What kinds of families are there in Jewish culture? And what are the aspects of their lives? What traditions do they have? What documentary heritage do they have? What families are welcome and what families maybe aren't so welcome in Jewish culture. Next, how family values are reflected in Jewish culture. So we are taught certain family values, and then that has waves of implications for many of the other aspects of Jewish culture. So we want to explore that. We want to explore what is unique to Jewish families. We think there are things that are unique to Jewish families, but are family values actually universal? Perhaps, the uniqueness of our families is the uniqueness of every family, because every family is individual. So we want to explore this, what part of the uniqueness of Jewish families is due to the individuality of every family, and what, if anything, is due to our unique heritage and our unique culture. And we also want to know how Jewish family is documentarily reflected in our heritage. You know, what kinds of materials, what kinds of documents, what kinds of books do we have that reflect Jewish family life? And finally, what does our canon have to say about families that is still relevant today? That is bringing us back to the idea of having central quotes to each of the panels. And now, having said all that, this is sort of the background of how we have been working on this theme. I want to introduce to you our 8 sub-themes that we are exploring this year, that we think should be explored this year. The first one is just its family values. It's the kind of families that we have in our canon, the stories of our forefathers, the stories of the families, the dynasties that, if you will, that are described in the Bible and later on, what Jewish religion teaches about family, what values are there in the Talmud about family. We also want to touch upon the new family, because no longer is it true that the family is just what we read in the Bible, but also there are other types of family unit, quite many in this day and age, and we want to touch upon that, again, with the issue of inclusivity. We want everybody to find their family reflected. And that can be from LGBTQ families to single parent families to mixed families as well. And we also want to touch upon various aspects of family psychology, what family means in this day and age, and what has it meant through the ages. Here you see an example of the kind of image that we would involve in this panel. Next, it's families that changed Jewish history. And here, of course, this is just a very small sample of some families whose archives we have at the library, or families that are reflected in our heritage. But of course, there are so many Jewish families that have left their mark in history, each special and unique in its own way. And we want to reflect that. We want to bring some examples. And of course, if you would like a family from your community highlighted, and you have material, please reach out. We would be happy to include. Next is chosen families. Here we have one of those quotes. It's a quote from Ruth, the book of Ruth, who chooses to go with her daughter-in-law and become part of her family. She doesn't have to, but she chooses that. And we have communities, and we have friendships, and we have all sorts of people that become our families, even if they're not our families by blood. So we want to explore that topic. Next, we're speaking about family history, photo albums, family archives, the ways that we preserve family history. So there are so many different ways to preserve family history, family cookbooks as well, family prayer books, all varieties of family history preservation. We want to speak about making families, how families become families. So we want to talk about love, we want to talk about weddings, we also want to talk about our beautiful collection of ketubot, of course, marital contracts, because we miss no opportunity to talk about that beautiful collection. It's really unique. But we also want to talk about dating, about matchmaking, about different customs, how people celebrate love and marriage in different communities around the world. A variety of wedding rituals that are common to all Jewish communities, but non-Jews are not aware of them. Sorry. So that's another one. We want to speak, of course, about parents and children. Again, some quotes from our scripture you can see here, and then intergenerational relationships. Also, the Jewish traditions around having children, their birth, their naming, their bar mitzvahs, their brits, etc. And also education is a whole big theme that we want to explore in this panel. And our sources teach us a lot about how we are supposed to educate children, what challenges we face when educating them. And this flows naturally into family traditions. So that is traditions that are inward facing. So we have traditions that are observed mostly in the synagogue, mostly in the communal space. And then we have also traditions that are mostly observed within the family home. So you can see here some examples of that. Here too, I mentioned the cookbooks and prayer books, but afikoman, a variety of traditions that involve children, Purim costumes, everything about Hanukkah is very family oriented, and other things like that. We see here a painting of a family celebrating Purim. They seem dressed up, etc. That's also from our collections. And finally, parting and reuniting. So there is a whole theme in Jewish history of people traveling away forever and not knowing if they're going to meet their families ever again. So this is a type of parting. Of course, sometimes there's death in the family. Sometimes people get separated and become no longer a family. That we also cannot miss the topic of tragedies that befall entire communities, like what happened this year, but also the Holocaust and other tragedies that happen that make families fall apart, and what is left when a family falls apart. And of course, reunions as well. And if you allow me, I will tell you about this photograph that you see here from the Dana Deni collection. This is an Ethiopian family that was part of a 70 family group traveling via Sudan from Ethiopia on foot to get to Israel in 1984. And they were only traveling at night because in the daytime it was too dangerous. And one of the nights in the dark, the 5-year-old child, Menhala Desai, was lost. The family spent 2 days, the family and the entire group spent 2 days looking for her, and they couldn't find her. And they had to continue on. 9 years later, as the parents were already living in Israel, a rumor arrived to them via a person, an Ethiopian, who had been in the area where she was lost. He heard a rumor about a child being found around that time and being adopted into a family in a local village. So the Jewish agency heard about the story, and they flew her father back to that area, to the village, to try and find that child who had been adopted into the family 9 years before. When they arrived to the village, they found out from the adoptive family that the child had been abducted. She had been kidnapped that very year, and she was heard to be, or rumored to be, in another village around 200 kilometers away. They managed to locate the child in that village and to get her into the hands of the Jewish agency. And in 1993, this child, the girl that you can see in the middle, who was then 14 years old, was reunited with her father, and she arrived in Israel. And this photo is from the Ben Gurion airport in Tel Aviv. And this is just one story of a reunion that seems like a miracle, you know? And we feel like such stories are just a part of family history in our heritage, and we would like to highlight them in this final panel. And that is it from me. Please reach out and ask, suggest, argue. We will take into consideration your requests, of course. You have my email here on the screen, and you can just scan this QR code to go to our website. I will warn you, however, that the National Library, like many national institutions in Israel, is under constant cyber attacks at this time. And so if the website is not functioning perfectly, please be patient with us, because we're trying to fix this, but we are in a war. That's it from me. If anybody has questions or comments, that would be the time.